All right, let's talk about one of the most common and maybe most misunderstood gadgets in your kitchen. Yep, the garbage disposal. There's a surprisingly deep story hiding right under your sink.
You know the scene, right? You've got some leftovers, they've seen better days. Do you chuck them in the trash and let that lovely smell take over your kitchen? Or do you just grind them up and send them down the drain?
Seems like a pretty simple choice, doesn't it? But what actually happens next? Well, that kicks off this incredible journey. We're talking infrastructure, a bit of history, and get this, even clean energy. So let's get into it and figure out what's really going on with your garbage disposal.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this thing, we've got to rewind the clock. Go back to a time when the garbage disposal wasn't just a handy kitchen tool. It was a full-blown symbol of the future.
So our story actually starts in Racine, Wisconsin. There was this architect, John W. Hams, and he was thinking there has to be a cleaner, better way to deal with food scraps. So back in 1927, he invents the very first disposal unit. And the company he started to sell it? InSinkErator. I bet that name sounds pretty familiar.
And you know, the timing for this invention was just perfect. It's invented in 27, hits the market in 1940, but it's after World War II that things really take off. I mean, it just exploded. It was the perfect gadget for the brand new American suburbs and this whole dream of a super modern automated home.
Yeah, as the historian Sarah Archer puts it, these new appliances were absolutely revolutionary. You have to remember, for people who grew up with the hard labor of coal stoves and washing clothes by hand, this wasn't just a gadget, it was literally a piece of the future, humming away right there in your sink. But of course, with all that convenience came the questions, right? Is this thing secretly a disaster for the environment? Is it destroying our pipes? Well, it's time to bust some of those long-standing myths.
Okay, so let's hit the big three worries head on. Is it gonna hike up my bills, waste a ton of water, and clog my pipes? What's the real story here? Let's look at the actual data.
First up, your electric bill. Get ready for this. On average, it costs less than 50 cents for the entire year to run your garbage disposal. Seriously. In the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. A total drop in the bucket.
Okay, so what about water? Is it a water guzzler? Nope. Turns out, using your disposal only accounts for about 1% of all the water your household uses in a day. Again, it's a super small footprint.
All right, now for the big one, the clogged pipes. This is mostly just a big misunderstanding. Here's the secret. You have to run cold water. Why? Because the cold water makes any grease or fat solid, so it gets ground up and washed away with everything else instead of sticking to the inside of your pipes. It's that simple.
Okay, so we've busted the myths, but this is where the story gets really interesting. Because once those food scraps go down the drain, they start this wild journey that, well, it turns them from just being waste into something incredibly valuable.
Now, when you first look at this chart, you might think, aha, I knew it was bad. And yeah, it does show that disposals add more stuff, more pollutants, more gunk to the wastewater. It absolutely puts a bigger load on the treatment plant, no doubt about it.
But here's the twist. A modern wastewater treatment plant isn't just a giant filter anymore. They're actually resource recovery centers, and they use this brilliant process called anaerobic digestion. Basically, they use bacteria to do something pretty amazing with all that extra gunk.
So here's how it goes down. First, all those food solids get separated out. Then, they're pumped into these huge sealed tanks. They're called digesters. Inside, with no oxygen, these little microbes just go to town feasting on all that waste. And as they eat, they release methane gas. But instead of letting that gas escape, we capture it. And that captured gas is called biogas.
And this chart, this right here, shows you the disposal's hidden superpower. Look at the blue bars. That's how much extra energy it takes to process the food waste. But then look at the green bars. That's how much energy they create from that biogas. So in the right kind of plant, sending food down the drain actually creates more energy than it uses. It becomes a net energy gain. It's literally helping to power the city.
And the potential here is just mind-blowing. The EPA did the math, and they figured if we could get just half of all the food waste in the U.S. into these kinds of facilities, we could generate enough clean power for 2.5 million homes for a whole year. That's huge.
Okay, so if these things can actually help make clean energy, then why is it still pretty much just an American thing? Why isn't everyone using one? Well, to answer that, we have to look at the bigger global picture.
One of the absolute biggest fears, especially in older cities, is this thing, the fatberg. It's exactly what it sounds like, a disgusting, massive lump of congealed fat oil, grease, and whatever else people flush that they shouldn't. These things can clog up entire sewer systems and cost millions to remove. It's a city's worst nightmare.
So for a lot of places, especially in Europe, it's really a mix of things. You've got much older sewer systems that just can't handle the extra load. You have actual bans and restrictions. There's also a stronger cultural preference for composting. And of course, that ever-present fear of creating a fatberg. All that together has meant the garbage disposal just never really caught on.
All right, so we've gone through the history, we've busted the myths, we've even uncovered this hidden energy superpower. So what's the final verdict? When it comes to being green in the kitchen, where does the garbage disposal actually fit in?
Well, experts are pretty clear that there's a kind of green hierarchy for food waste. The number one best thing you can do? Just don't waste food to begin with. Number 2 is composting your scraps. But, and this is the key takeaway, using your garbage disposal is way, way better than just throwing that food in the trash. Because in a landfill, that food just rots and releases methane straight into the air.
And that really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? The biggest impact we can have isn't choosing between the sink and the trash can. It's about the choices we make before we even get to that point. At the grocery store, when we're planning our meals, the real goal is to just have less to throw out in the first place, period.
So in the end, that simple little machine under your sink reveals something pretty profound, I think. It shows us that our homes aren't these little isolated bubbles. They're connected to this huge invisible network. And a simple choice you make in your kitchen, what to do with your leftovers, can literally connect you to your city's power grid. It turns your everyday waste into a source of energy. It's just a powerful reminder of all the hidden systems that quietly shape our modern lives.